Hi everybody, this is Greg Koopman. Today I'm going to talk to you about quadrants in Power BI. Now, I didn't see where I could really find the kind of quadrant I was looking for, which is the typical four quadrant type of matrix, I guess you call it. Um, and I didn't see that when I went out uh, to the core visuals. So what I did was I went out and looked for a custom visual with quadrants, right? So I went and I went more visuals, and I went out and searched for quadrant. Okay. Now I only found a couple quadrants, right? So I found the quadrant chart by Mac software, or MAQ, and scatter chart by aggregates. All right, so I looked at both of these, and I felt that the quadrant chart by Mac might do the trick. Okay, it had 4 out of 5 stars. I think that's about right. I don't think it should have 5 stars. There's a couple things that seem like it wasn't either intuitive or okay. So I chose that one, and actually I tried both of them, but the scatter chart by aggregates didn't seem to work the way I wanted it to. Okay, so I added that. I clicked add, but I don't need to add it. It's already there. So that's what these 3 quadrants here, or not 3 quadrants. These 3 visuals are from that product. Okay, from that visual. So basically, what I saw the problem with having just what I really was after initially was just to go where I could drill down on each of these bubbles, right? And that the same quadrants would then fill up with a typical hierarchy, okay? So let's say we have a country, state, and city, right? It's a hierarchy, okay? So let's say your top level is the country, and you could just click on the country and drill down to the states or provinces, and then you could then drill on those down to the cities. But this one, I tried that, and I couldn't get it to work properly at all. I don't think is made for that, to tell you the truth. So I improvised, and I came up with a different idea. So I have 3 levels here. Okay, a top level, and that drills down to a mid-level, and the mid-level drills down to a base level. So it really isn't doing a drill down at all, but will emulate the concept. Okay, so for example, so basically what I've done here is I've created this thing I call Kids Summer Camp Activity or Summer Activities Decision Matrix, and it's based on a family that has 3 children named Charlie, Mildred, and Sally, and they all have, for some reason, they have whatever, like 30 activities or 20 activities that they can choose from. And each of them is a different personality and has different likes and dislikes. And so I made up this concept there. Each one of these activities, and let's say the family has to do them all as a whole, and so each one we gave it in hours, how many hours you're going to do it, and how much enjoyment you get out of it, or how much fun you get out of it. So that's what I'm tracking here in these quadrants, in these visuals, based on some data I loaded. Okay, and basically, let's look at the quadrants. So if the activity is, let's look down here in the base level, because that's really where the name of the activity is. So for example, we have a best quadrant, which means it ranks up from 0 to 20 for fun and 0 to 20 for hours. Okay, it's very static in how many hours and what the fun is. If you're doing a 20, that means you're having an extremely large amount of fun. Okay, if it's a 0, it really stinks. Okay, so and then the hours is just self-descriptive. Here's 20 hours, 15 hours. So for example, let's say we have Charlie. I just have Sally selected, right? And here's Sally's makeup for all the activities. Okay, and it demonstrates them here in a grid and here in a matrix. So if we hover over any of these, we can see, okay, tennis, for example, is in the great quadrant, right? This quadrant is the great quadrant. Here's the best quadrant. So let's see what's in the best quadrant. So, well, in the best quadrant, we have the Three Bears, which is a book, right? Where 15 hours and the fun level is 12. So 12 is over 10, which is the midpoint here. So that fell into the best category because it's not only fun, but you get to do it for a long time. So there it is in the fun column. Whereas if we go down to the boring column, which means it's not that much fun, and I got to do it for a lot of hours. So reading Harry Potter in this case, for Sally is not that much fun. So anyway, so that's how I've rated these things. It's all random numbering and everything else, but there is a madness to this science, okay? So if we bubble these up, right, so if I've categorized these, so as you look over into this grid here, let's go to the top level here. So I'm in the matrix. Okay. So here's the top level, right? And the top level is reading and sports, right? Okay, so reading and sports, you can see when you go to this top level visual, you have only two bubbles, right? Only 2 points. So if you hover over the blue, it's sports. If you hover over the red, it's reading. So what this is telling us is that all these guys down at the base level are the granular level. They're part of a subcategory of the mid levels, and the mid levels make up the top level. Okay, and basically it all bubbles up as an average. So basically, if we look at reading, it has 3 different mid levels, and their mid levels are represented over here. So you can see the red. So their biography, fables, and fiction. Okay, so they're a subcategory. They're a subtotal, more or less, or in this case, it's a sub-average of the base level. All right. So when you add up and under that one, let's say under biography, for example, we have Life of Clinton, Life of FDR, Life of Obama, and Life of Trump. Okay, 3 different books. Okay. And again, these are all random, so don't take it like I'm trying to rate anybody. But these, so for her, Life of Clinton is hours, and it has 16 amounts of fun. So this fell in the great quadrant. And Life of FDR was great, and Obama and Trump was good. Okay, so basically, what's happened here is that. And then what these do, it takes into all these numbers and averages them up to the biography level, right, with mid-level. And it averaged out to 4, and for fun 14. So 4 and 14 is that's right. Fun would be in this area, above 10, 14, and 4, which is the hours, would be in this area. So there it is. Biographies, 4 hours, and fun, 14. Okay? So that's where we get that subtotal. And of course, the reading total is made up of the sums of the averages of all the numbers under here. Okay? Under here and under here. So it's made up of all the granular level that bubbles all the way up to reading. Okay? So that's how it works. Same with sports, of course. So then you can evaluate, for Sally, for example, you can see that her sports, looks like she likes sports better than reading. Okay? Now, so basically we could say, well, what books can we let her read that are the most fun, right? So we could click on here, on reading, and now we're going to go over the mid-level. Here's the 3 areas of the mid-level for reading. Okay, and we could say, well, let's see, what's the worst ones? So the worst ones would probably fall under here, under the lowest amount of fun, right? Because that's a 6, there's a 10, and there's a 14 fun. So we can go and click there, and we see that these are the base level activities that make up that, which would be over here. You can see it's Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, Les Miserables, and Harry Potter. Okay, I'm just going to order these by hours. So if I look at the lowest hours, which is 0, it will be the furthest one on the left. So that's Wizard of Oz. She really, well, it's in the good column, so we wouldn't get rid of that one. Let's say we're going to reduce it to a couple. So we're going to Les Miserables. She doesn't have to spend much time with it, and it's still fun. Isn't very much, but she doesn't spend much time with it either. So that's okay. Now here we're getting into the boring area, which would be Harry Potter, where she has the fun level is only 7, and the number of hours she has put in for that is 14 hours. So that one, if I was going to try to make a happier experience for her for the summer, I might tell her, hey, you don't need to read Harry Potter. Okay, do the other 3, and then you'll enjoy it a little bit more, but we'll just forget about Harry Potter. So if we look at this now, and we get rid of Harry Potter, okay, and just let her do the other areas, we're going to be in a lot better shape. Okay, so that's how this kind of works. And there's the reason why earlier I said this visual, it was given 4 stars, and not by me specifically, but that was what it showed when I went to download it. I can understand it because when I click on these little bubbles, it works pretty well, but not perfect. It gets it's as if these things get a little confused. Okay, now it seems like when I click on them, this side of the it slices these good, but the internals of the chart sometimes get weird. For example, if I click on Gone with the Wind, right? So I click on Gone with the Wind, and suddenly everything showed up, right? Which doesn't make sense. And the one that's highlighted is the 3 bears, which really doesn't make sense. Although over on my filter for the grid, it's fine. It still stayed fine, and for these 2, it stayed fine. If I click on it again, it's it clicked and everything shows up. And if I click on it 2 more times, and here we go, we finally got to where that's highlighted. Only that sign is highlighted up in the other 2 quadrants. So that's what I don't like about it. It's a little confusing. If I was using it just for myself and not demoing it, or as myself, I could use it and still be very useful as an individual. But I do understand that if I was like a customer and I was like sold this thing to somebody, it probably wouldn't be I'd probably get a lot of complaints. So that's why I can see why it's a 4-star instead of 5-star. But it has a lot of nice features. I mean, it presents pretty well, and other than some of that, and I can overcome that kind of thing just by going and using this matrix, right? So I can go to the matrix. It's not quite as good as pressing the bubbles, but it has its benefits too. So if I want to just look at biographies, I can just click on biographies, and it's only going to show me biography, and that's a solid for reading, and that's a solid deal there. Now here I see this bubble, Life of Obama, is blue. What's nice about this also is, let's say I have on this and I go over to my visualization, and I go into the bubble where I can just make the colors of the bubbles proper. So if I go down to Obama, which is a part should be red, I can come in here to change it to red. So let me change it to red here. Now, okay, so now we go back over here. I go to biographies. We're just looking at the biography section, which is the different biographies, and there's reading here. It's in the grade area, and in here you can see that the Obama changed to red because I changed it there. So you can make these things whatever color you want. I chose, since the 2 highest levels, there are only 2 highest levels, I chose to make everything corresponding to them the same color. Okay, because by default it just makes all these different colors, and really it's pretty, but you really can't. It really isn't as useful. Here it's a little more useful. So I can sit here with this matrix over here, and I can come over and say, well, let me see the biography stuff. I'm not going to look at fables and fiction, but I do want to look at sports. So I'll hold the control key down and click on sports, and boom, now I got over here, the reading, but that reading is only for biography. But I got all my sports. So I got my sports here, and my sports are divided into individual and team, right? So I can come back over here and just start looking at some of these by bringing it down, right? So all these are active, right? So all those blues. So you see the blues, you have team, like or individual, like tennis. Soccer is a team. Bowling is an individual. Basically, let's just click on one. There we go. So now we have my individual, and I'll come back up and hit control in a biography. Now I got both. I'm just going to compare. I'm just basically comparing the individual sports and biography reading, and you see the sports still take over there. In that case, again, this is all random. But let's say, for example, I use, now remember, all these kids have the same back on their data, has the same thing, just different metrics assigned to them. So now let's watch our bubbles move around as we add more data to it, just by clicking on Mildred and Charlie. So there's Mildred's been selected. Now you see it, all of a sudden they change, right? And you see, and watch these, okay? So again, and watch, put Charlie on, and it changes again. So you see, as I added those two, it looks like both the reading and the sports got negative. They didn't sound like they were as energetic about either one, any of those as Sally, right? So if I unclicked Sally and just look at Charlie and Mildred, these two will probably drop even further. So let's see what happens. And they did. They both went to boring. These two kids aren't motivated at all. All right. So maybe they're going to have to go get a summer job. But anyways, that's how it works there. And so as you see, as I click through these, I'm using this matrix as a filtering scheme. And I kind of like using this better. I think this whole concept is really powerful. I think there's a whole bunch of, a person could really study these things even with a small amount of data. But let me just show you something. So let's say, for example, let me just go ahead and let's just look at Charlie now, okay? So Charlie, and we're just going to look at a couple things here. So we're going to look at Life of Trump. And so I had a discussion with him, and he said, Dad, I really, I want to study more about Trump. I want to find that very interesting, very fun. So, and he said, that's really what I really want to do. Again, this is not political. But so I said, okay, well, let's see. For our matrix, we need to change that fun number to higher, to like 15, and that hours number to, we'll give you 10 hours on that, okay? So we're going to go to Control Click. If you go to Control Click, what this is going to do, the background data here is sitting over in Office 365, and it's in a Excel spreadsheet, okay? And that was a bit of a chore to get into this Power BI properly. So if you watch my previous Power BI video, I think it's number 12, on accessing Office 365, I would watch that if you have any problems using that data, or you can go ahead and connect it directly to your local Excel workbook, okay? Both the workbook and this particular PowerPoint report are both going to be in the download section. So at the bottom, you can click on it, and you can download both of those. You will have to do a little setup to get it working properly, and you probably have to watch a little more of the video, especially to see how it works. Maybe not. So anyways, my point is here. Basically, that's sitting up there. So if I look at my Chrome right now, I have only my OneDrive open, okay? And actually, I don't even have to have OneDrive open. But I'm going to leave OneDrive open. Actually, I'll leave OneDrive open. But I don't have to have OneDrive open, okay? So, and I'm going to click on this. And what I want to do is the back end of this video, this report is called Activities. And what that is doing is it's pulling this Excel spreadsheet, the Office 365. So basically in the report, if I control click, what this is going to do is open up that spreadsheet over in my browser, okay, which I just did. So I have to just, and there it is. It opened up for me, right? Okay, so Charlie, and I leave it with some filtering here to make it a little easier for me to get to where it was. Actually, I could either do it that way, Or I could say, let's see, there's a life of Trump. It's row 30, which are all unique, right? So I can just go to row 30 when I go try to do it. But I put these filters in so it's easier for me to get around. So especially if let's say you have a million rows over there, or 100,000 or 10,000, you probably need to use more than one filter, but or maybe just the row number is fine too. So we just go to 30, which I'm just going to eyeball. So there it is. There's 30. There's life of Trump. So there's a 2 for hours. I'm going to bump that up to 10. And I'm going to put this enjoyment up to 15. Okay. All right. But because I'm going to be politically adverse inside this, I don't know what that's the right word, inside this video, I'm going to also go put Obama, who's already high on this one. Let me get someone lower. I'm going to put Clinton. I'm going to bump him up too. Okay. Just to be politically correct. I'll bump him up to 12 for the hours, and for the fun, I'll put him up to 14. Okay? Just to be fair. Okay, so what I do now is I have to close that tab. If I don't close that tab, it really doesn't register in my Power BI book. Okay, so if I went back and refreshed it, it's not going to find those changes. So I do have to close it. I'm going to jump back and refresh. And you see it's 2 and 9 here, right? So when it refreshes, that guy should be changed to life of Trump 10 and 15. So you see I've changed it right from the Power BI screen by going into the data set, changing it over in Office 365, and then I did my refresh, and boom, I'm right back in here. Let's see if life of Clinton changed. Okay, life of Clinton changed. It went also from 12 to 14 like it was supposed to, right? Okay, very good. So as you click around here, if you use a program like this or a report like this, you learn how to click around to enable, disable, collapse, expand, all that kind of stuff. And so it takes, if you like give this thing to somebody to present and they never have, it's going to be a disaster. All right. But if you know what you're doing and you've been, you're experienced with this tool, it can be very powerful in a demonstration or for your own doing your own analysis. Okay. So if we went back to Chrome, you see I don't have anything up my sleeves, no tabs open, and I do a control click on this one again, control click, boom, I'm inside of my I'm inside that spreadsheet again, right, where all the data, where it's coming from, where all the data is coming from. Okay, so that's really cool. So let's actually just go ahead for fun, change Sally, and we'll just now call her Sal. Okay, so sure she wouldn't like, but I don't even know her. So there's Sal. And I'll just take this down and replace all the Sallys with Sal. Okay? So now we got Sally, all right? So I'm going to close that up because if you don't close it, it doesn't register. I come back over to my Power BI. Watch the Sally. It should change to Sal now, right? So I hit refresh. And watch the Sally, and there it is. Now she's changed to Sal here. And so if I put Sal here and clicked down in here, you see Sal. And okay, so then we're all set here. So that's how it works. Also down in here, I can click, and if I just click anywhere outside of the boundaries, it brings everything back. All right, so this is all kind of the starting position. So what I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, probably about 15 different activities. And so that would give me, a number of different possibilities here, but it's very functional. And obviously this is just a fictitious example. You can use this in all sorts of business decision making, as well as other decision making. I know Gartner has their magic quadrant kind of thing, and I think lots of studies use these quadrants. Okay, let me show you a few more details about this. I'm not going to make this into a basic learning course. on that. I wanted to more or less show you the idea and the quadrants themselves. But let's just dig down a little bit technically and look at what behind the quadrant. So here's a quadrant, okay, in the visual, and here's my metrics and my activities, right? So in my metrics, I have a few different measures I use, okay? And those measures are as follows, okay? I use activity count, okay, which is just basically counts the number of the granular level of activities, the rows more or less. And then I have enjoyment total, which is just the sum of all the enjoyment column, which if we look at our base grid, our base data, let me just get over there and look at the data for a second. If you look at the data, like now we have Sal there with, each one of the activities, which is like tennis, baseball, football, ping pong, Gone with the Wind. So I divided them into sports and reading. And you see how many I put the hours in. And what I did with this whole data structure was it was between 0 and 20. So I just used a random generator, and I threw a modular mod. Actually, here, I'll show you. So I just did something like this. I just did a mod against a random generator, did a trunk to get rid of the decimals, any decimals, and did a mod against 21. And that's how I made sure they stay within between 0 and 1 for all these things. So I didn't have to figure out all these numbers, even though there's only, 57 rows. I didn't want to, it's still a lot of data to fill out, and it's not fun. It's very redundant and not fun. So I just did the little formula to do that. And then I took those two rows or columns, and I copied them and just pasted the values over into these columns, and then put it into a sheet by itself. And this is what I brought into the overall Power BI report. And of course I have the mid-level, which is this is basically a hierarchy from sports to mid-level to tennis, and that has to be it has to have some sort of referential integrity to it. You don't want to have things that conflict. So anyways, you can get this data set, not a big deal. I also put a row identifier on here, which is works pretty well. I want a unique row, so if I did have 1 million of these, people wouldn't have to go through too much filtering to locate the exact row they want to change the data for. Okay, so that's the data. So coming back over here, so my measures had activity count, and so the activity count and the total, right, come into play. The enjoyment total, rather, here came into play. Enjoyment total is the sum of all enjoyment, which is, I rename later. That's fun, okay? So I then take those two measures and I form the fun measure, which is this. It's basically the sum of the enjoyment total, or rather the enjoyment total, and the activity count divided by activity count, right? So could be enjoyment total could be 15, and then a metric for the activity count could be 4. So what is that? That's like 3.75, but I don't want the 75 on it, so I just truncated it. So I had a solid whole number of 3. Okay, and so that's how I determine that. Now, you say, okay, well, I already have the numbers when I bring the data in. Well, this really isn't. This will give you the same number, but it basically, because it's dividing, only one row, but it's dividing by 1. But when you bubble up to this level and to this level, so if I bubble up and I look at the fiction, well, fiction has, let's click on it. Fiction might have 4 different areas under here for it, right? So that's a problem. So not a problem. It means that these 4 you have to sum up all the hours for them all, and you have to sum up, and you have to look at the count, which is 4. So let's say the sum is 25 divided by 4. It's going to be like 6.25, right? So then you have 6. So that's what this number, how do you correlate this number? And that's what these measures are doing. So these measures are mainly for, if I didn't have these two higher levels, it'd be no problem. I wouldn't have to have a measure. But since I do, those things have to bubble up, these aggregates, okay? And as you learn more about DAX and Power BI and these kind of things, you'll discover that if you haven't already. Okay, so that's how I did the fun. And if you notice, these are kind of disabled or hit, but basically what they are is hidden. I really don't want those to be, see I have a hide there. Those, if I was like pushing this out to other developers, they would see that. Or actually, I think I have the view hidden on. So if you know, when you do a big report, you might have hundreds of things here, right? You don't want to see all those that you don't need to see. So here I can just say, get rid of my hiddens, and now I'm just watching this, even though these are still based on those. But if you come into a measure and you don't see like your something it's based on, well, you might want to just go ahead and say show your, come over here and say view hidden. Okay, then you see what those other measures are doing. Okay, so that's how what I did for the hours. The quad was really simple because I wanted to have something in my grid that shows what quadrant it was in, and also here, regardless of where it was in the levels. So I needed this value to show up. So I could say, well, las miserable for Sal is going to show up in the good area. So las miserable isn't good. So here it is. So I went to the good quadrant, and there it is, right? Okay. So same idea. It looks like I have another problem with the coloring here for Wizard of Oz. So I'm just going to go check that out. Just, and you run into problems. Every problem you run into, just think it's more practice and you're getting better at your skill. Okay, so just like that. All right, just it doesn't hurt. The more practice you get, the better you get at this stuff. So, okay, so that's what we're talking about, what the quad measure is. And so what I did was not only did I pull from the regular table all these different columns, but I also pulled from the measure, okay, called quad. So if you look at I have this visual highlighted or selected, and then I look at what's in there, and there's the hours, fun, and quad, right? Okay, for the okay, so that's some information there. Let's go to our quadrants, which is what the title of this video is, and let's look at what we got. So let's look at our quadrant 1, which is going to be illustrative of all the other quadrants. So in my x-axis, right, I have my hours, and in my y-axis I have my fun. Which, what are these? These are coming from my metrics, right? Fun and hours. Okay, pretty basic. And my legend, okay, which is the top level, which is right here, sports and reading. Those determine what the bubble, right? Okay, the label of the bubble. Okay, and all this is a roll up. These two measures are rolled up to this level, to the top level. So this one here probably has, let's see, there's a blue. So if I went down in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 different activities associated with the blue when I hover over sports, right? So if I went in here and I went to sports and did sorted by sports here, I should see 6. Now I hope this doesn't make me look like a liar. So I'm just going to sorted 1, 2, 3. There we go. 1 to 6. They're right there. So that you have 6, right? And the rest are all red for here, and they're all reading based. So if we hover over any one of those, you'll see titles of books. Okay? They're all evaluated based on the point coordinates as to what number of hours and fun. Okay? And so that's how, and also that's how we get our quadrant. Okay, so let's go back to our quadrant. And so on that area, the fields, that's how that's set up there. And I don't use this radial axis, and I can't seem to get rid of it here in the tooltip. I don't see a tooltip. So like I say, that's again maybe why the stars aren't, all 5. But again, it's 4. It gives you a lot of value here, and I like the look of it. Okay, so, and what I like also is because it's Power BI, everything is, if you click on, most of the time if I click on sports, boom, I click on the sports, and here's everything else kind of filters to that, right? And like I said, the quadrants, sometimes these guys don't filter the way I'd like to see them. In fact, I don't think they work as well. And that's why. But when you click over on this side and you say soccer, you're getting soccer. That's all you're going to see is soccer. All right? If I come over here and I say soccer, hold my control down and say bowling, you're going to see soccer and bowling. And if I would come over here and go back up and I say life of Obama and life of Trump, you're going to see life of Trump and life of Obama too. Okay, all the way from the first level down to the third level, okay, to the base level. So this is why I added this, because this is I think 100%. This also, if I want to just take those 4 and just subgroup more, and just say soccer, then we're back to soccer. So these filtering aids here are more solid, I think, than actually click on the bubbles. I wish it was just the bubbles. I still would have these grids anyways next to them, and I'd still have this filter. But I feel more comfortable with these. When you click on these bubbles, it was always going to work right. So that time I clicked on the bubble, and all of a sudden we get a little bit different activity there, which I don't like. Okay. So if I just re-click on team, then I should probably I'm back to where I should be. Biography. Okay. So that's again quadrants. Now the quadrants, I kind of prettied them up a bit, and you do that by coming into format, this icon, and the legend. I turn on the legend on this one and this one, and this one there were so many it went off the screen, and I felt it too confusing, so I got rid of it. And sometimes these again, that's why it's a 4-star instead of a 5-star. Sometimes these things don't reflect exactly what I clicked on, which is disturbing. Okay. Again, go them over here and you're in good shape for your filters. Okay, so your legend is your legend. You can size it, all that stuff. Not a big deal. Quadrants. The quadrants are important here. It defaults to quadrant 1, quadrant 2 for the names. So you can come in here and I named them best. Great, good. If I wanted to change the best to best ever, right? Then all of a sudden you see it change to best ever, right? So that's pretty cool. That's good. Let's come down a little further. X-axis. This is where I set the static number of my. This would be all over the place. This one and this one and this one. Initially, if you don't have this set, you'd have this one might be up to 30, and this one down to 10, and this, it wouldn't be scaled well. So that's why since I have static values coming in, I can make it static here. So I have 0 to 20, and I make these little intervals to show up interval of 4. Okay, so this works pretty darn good. And I did the same exact ones for the x-axis and y-axis for each one of these quadrants. Okay, so that's the x-axis. Let's see. Title. I could turn on the title if I want, which I wanted to. For the x-axis, I called it hours. Otherwise, it's just going to be called whatever I brought in as my metric, which would be HRS instead of the full word. So you can set that up, which is nice. Okay, so y-axis, same idea. Bubble colors. Okay, bubble colors. I can go and change these colors. Okay, I'm in quadrant 1, right? So especially if you have a fairly static number of if you know what your bubbles are going to represent and it's static. So for sports there, if I want to, I can come in here and customize it and make it a green. Click green. Boom. You see, it's green over here. Doesn't change the rest of them, but it changes that one. So I wanted to have them all, consistent, so you could focus on what you're trying to do, business-wise. So that's that. So put it back. So that's cool. I like the bubble colors. You can do that with all your charts and stuff practically. Change the colors. Power BI is real good with that. Title. I have title on. I can change that to whatever I want. I can just change that to top. And it went from top level to top, right? Okay. Go back to format. Format. Okay. So let's see what else is title. Title, you can do all sorts of stuff, Let me put it there, which looks, hey, that looks pretty good. I like that. But I'll leave it on the left side. Change how big it is, no big deal, etc., etc. And that's it for title. Background. It gives you the color, background, right? Gave different colors for each background. But you got to look at your transparency. By default, it's way over here. So you say, what's going on? I changed the color, but it didn't change. Well, you got to turn your transparency down to 0. Okay. All right. Lock aspect. I'm really not sure what that does. Sorry about that. Leave it in the comments if you figure that one out. And I didn't use general. I guess that's the width. That's where you can put the exact width and height of this thing. Border. That's this guy right around here, which is very small. Actually, I made it I thought, yeah. It doesn't give you much for the border, like thickness. But you can't choose color. And you can change the radius. What's radius? Well, radius is a curvature. So you see this little curve? Okay. If I made this 0, it wouldn't have a curve. It'd be a block. Maybe that looks better. But anyways, I made everything curvy. Make it look like an apple. All right. So that's our border and our visual headers. And I must admit, I haven't gone deep into these at all. Actually, I haven't gone into these. So, again, discover something really interesting, let me know. Background color. Yeah, maybe there's something here that I majored that I really should have been using, but that's what these comments are for. So, sorry, I don't have that covered. Okay. And that's it. That's the quadrants. That's the visual and how it works there, and kind of how I did my data over here, organized my data, and put together a scenario. And then then you got to see how I did my measures, which might be helpful, Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm sure I forgot a couple things, but I hope you liked the video. I hope you're able to it helps you put together something interesting. I really enjoyed working with this thing and playing with it. Spent most of my whole weekend doing it, but hey, it's okay. It was very interesting, and I liked it, and it was actually very fun. So I hope you have as much fun as I did with this, and good luck to you, and thanks for listening.